Hello, and welcome to this evening's episode of Mapping It Out, our behind the scenes of everything Dungeon Fog related. Hopefully, you can hear me because the new operator of the software just kind of said, and 3, 2, and then he went quiet. So if you can hear me, let me know in chat. That would be absolutely lovely. And if you are wondering, well, that's what's going on. Tonight we have got so much stuff to talk about. I cannot wait to jump into everything. There was some things that happened over the past couple weeks, which we might talk about, but mainly we're talking about the new launch, which most of you have already started using already, which is super cool. And then we've got some other bits and bobs. It's like I said, it's an action-packed show. Now, if you have questions, Morgan, thank you for letting us know that you hear me. That's great. If you have questions, please put the word question in caps in front of your question so I can see it in chat. And then I will pose it to Till, who is going to join me right now. So let's get Till to come in and join me and start talking about all of the cool and crazy stuff that has been happening in Dungeon Fog. And we've got a new asset pack. I mean, it's all happening. Where's Till? Till is here.
I'm here. Hi.
Fantastic. Till,
Yeah,
welcome.
Thank you. Hi, hello, everyone. We didn't really think about the fact that you're actually seeing everything on a delay, so you don't really know what's happening until someone tells you, right?
Yes, I did not realize that when I was talking to you before the show started, that I was actually just seeing your direct Zoom feed rather than your output from OBS. That's what we should change, because then there's no delay.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Anyway, welcome to the world of technology, folks. It is what it is. Till, it's been a journey over the past couple of weeks, hasn't it?
Oh yes, it is. It was a roller coaster of emotions. It was quite taxing. But it was. I think all the tears and the sweat were worth it. Because yeah, we've reached several major milestones.
Absolutely. March 24 is a big month for the battlemap editor, and also lays the groundwork for the DEIOS
stuff. Yes, exactly.
Stuff as well. So lots to do. So let's jump into it.
Yes.
Let's start. And with the very first thing, the very exciting thing, which of course people started using already, the asset manager.
Yes, exactly. So sorry, apologies. I've switched the screen so we can see now the company news. I still haven't managed to do any animations. I'm working on that. Yes, and we're talking about the asset manager. So for those of you who have no idea what the asset manager is, I will quickly pick you up here. The asset manager is your shiny new interface where you can manage all the assets, like everything that is available for now to the battlemap editor, but in the future for DEIOS as well. And it is basically a complete organizing tool where you can browse all the assets that are available to you, that could be available to you, that come through the content subscription, through the marketplace, through your Patreon integration, all those sources where assets might be, and of course, those that you upload yourself. And what you can do in the asset manager is you can organize them, tag them, categorize them, put them into neat little folders that you want. Like if you think this is a better way to structure assets, that's what you can do in the asset manager. And we have a lot of plans of where we want to go with it to improve it and make it your one-stop shop of kind of organizing all that stuff. But for now, it is mainly there to help you get a good understanding of the vast amount of assets that are already available, and to kind of restructure them in ways that you can access them faster for yourself. And of course, to manage everything that you upload. So there are tools in there where you can colorize your assets in the asset manager, or you can add your custom text to them. You can adjust what type of asset this is. Should that function as a door, or should that function as a prop? Is that a background image, or is it a texture? So all those things are in there, and the asset manager went live on the 14th. And now we are in the aftermath of cleaning up, which should have been a little less stressful than we actually had. But the idea is that we're now spending the next weeks to address the regular bug fixes. We've already seen a lot of things that you've reported. We knew of a couple of things that were ready by launch that we want to put in and fix. But mostly we're going to work on what we call the bridge. So if you haven't heard that term before, this is what we call the connection between the battlemap editor and the asset manager. And to make it easier for us internally, and to make it easier to talk about it, we're calling this connection, we're calling it the bridge, because it is an active bridging, where the asset manager knows that it is connected to the battlemap editor, and the battlemap editor knows as well. So when you're working on your maps, you can actually use the asset manager, and that kind of directly communicates with the drawing tools. And that one is still it is working, but the workflows, like the user workflows, are very rough at the moment. So we know that we need to do some workflow optimization and UI optimization on the way that the bridge is working at the moment. And that is going to be something that we're going to focus on in the next couple of weeks.
Right. So a couple of questions
Yes.
just before we sort of start moving further forward. Are we going to see, like in the community maps, are we going to see an option at some point for community asset folders?
Yes. So that is on the list of things that we want to do. There are a couple of things, just to name a few. One is to allow users to create their own structuring of existing assets and then make them public. The challenge with that is we have to be clever about it and careful about it, to prevent kind of improper asset sharing through that. Because if user A owns some assets and he kind of creates his pack for this and then makes the pack available to other users, do they have the right to get that asset? Or is that kind of IP protected and they should not have the right? So I think we're going to roll this out incrementally, where we say, okay, let's start with just content subscription, or just with tags, where you can say, okay, I've tagged all the assets that are available to me, and I'm sharing this tag collection with everyone. So if you have the same assets that I have through content subscription or Patreon integration, then those assets will be made available in your asset manager to you, but you're not actually sharing files there.
Right, absolutely. I think that's probably the best way to go anyway.
Yeah.
Because then you can share collections where you go, this is just Dungeon Fog stuff. And so here's all the foliage that's now been classified as one group, or here's all of this. Okay, no, I think that's really cool. Till, you were speaking about the patch, that 5.1.2, I think that's on the next slide.
That's on this slide. So this is basically all the stuff that happened in April.
You changed the slides.
I did, and and you're a bit on delay.
Apologies, I'm a minute and 20 seconds behind because I'm watching the YouTube feed. You live and learn. You're never too old to learn, folks.
Yeah,
never
true.
too old to learn. Right. Okay. So yes, talk to me.
Yes, so on the 14th, we've released the Asset Manager version 1. And alongside with that, we've also released the battlemap editor patch because not to get too technical, but basically if you have two web applications that try to talk to each other, and they are trying to send information from one tab into the other tab, the browsers are saying, oh, wait. We don't like that a lot. You might be sending some weird information through tabs. So we're preventing that unless you share the same server architecture and infrastructure. So to make that work, to make the bridge work, we had to bring them into the same server environment, which was actually something that we always were looking forward to because it meant that we can bring the battlemap editor away from our Austrian server where it was still sitting while all the world was grabbing at it. And we moved it into the cloud. So it's now CDN, which means that depending on where you are over the world, it might coming from a server that's closer to you than Austria. Which means this is important for everyone watching. If you bookmark maps directly, where you said, well, I'm working on a map, I'm going to bookmark the map directly, that bookmark's probably not going to work anymore because we've changed the domain where the battlemap editor is sitting. So we decided that we're going with a kind of a more modern approach to it. So you can find at app.dungeonfog.com/battlemaps, you can, or battlemap, I think, you can find the battlemap editor. And if you go to app.dungeonfog.com/manage, you find the asset manager. And that's kind of the logic that we're going to use in the future for all the things that we're releasing. So the BME patch 5.12.0 was addressing this. It was basically moving the battlemap editor to the cloud, making sure that all the links and all the internal document linking is still working when you create a new map, when you open a map, when you open campaigns and stuff like that. It also brought the asset manager integration, so we had to do an update to the battlemap editor, get rid of the old asset manager and introduce the linking and the bridge to the new asset manager. And then, of course, a lot of people have been using the old asset manager, which means that they already have collections. And we tried to do our best to do a migration into the new architecture of the asset manager. So if you haven't been opening your battlemap editor for a week or 2 weeks, you might see a big yellow banner that says, would you like to migrate your assets? And if you press yes, then we will take all the collections and the assets that you've uploaded in the old asset manager, and we're trying to recreate that architecture in the new asset manager. So the way that you've structured those assets and the way that you probably have set color options or light options and all that is being migrated.
What happens if you say no?
Well, then it's not happening. Then it's still there internally, but we are going to, at some point, we are going to turn off and delete the old database because it should be at some point, it should be just junk. It's old data that is not being accessed anymore. We're not going to do this. We're probably not going to do this year. We're keeping it up a little bit. So if someone returns, if someone had a break on their campaigns and returns next year, then this should still be fine, but eventually we're going to turn it off. A fair warning, this migration thing was very finicky to do. To make sure that everything migrates over means we have to read all the data structure, all the assets, all the values that you've adjusted to them, and some of them needed to be kind of transformed into a different value format. So eventually you're going to see either one of two prompts after the migration. First of all, you have to wait a bit. It shouldn't shouldn't take longer than a minute. But if you want to know if your migration was successful, you have to wait for the prompt. And it will either say, thank you, migration is done, you're good, or it will say, oops, there was a problem. So migrating all the original assets is totally fine. That always works. Trying to recreate your folder structure and the way that you set all the values on those custom assets that you've uploaded, that can, in some instances, we've seen some reports, that can fail. In that case, please send us a support email at support@dungeonfog.com, and we will specifically look at that case and help you migrate it. It works, I would say 90% of the cases it works, but there are 10% of people who say, I'm getting an error. Why do I not get the confirmation? And the answer is because we will then probably have to look at it and do some manual adjustments.
That's fair. That's fair. I've got some questions here,
Yeah.
though I'm not entirely sure. Navad108 says, I may have missed this, but is map sharing a feature that is planned at some point? I wonder if Navad is referring to DEIOS, because map sharing is definitely a thing in the battlemap editor.
Yes. Okay, so in the battlemap editor, you can share the map, and you can make them public, so they are available. Like you could create your own artist page, the content, the community hub. You can create your own hub profile and make your maps available there. You can, if you use the context menu and the right-click menu on your dashboard, you can create a private link where you just share this map with a friend or a fellow game master. So with battle maps, that is already implemented and working. With DEIOS maps, so city maps and world maps, that's an upcoming feature. So we've already, like the asset manager is kind of, again, was kind of laying the groundworks for this. And there are two things that are going to happen in relation to DEIOS. The one thing is that all the DEIOS assets will migrate into the asset manager. And the second thing is that then the DEIOS software will be able to upload the map into the cloud where you can then share it.
Incubus Gaming says, so the Dungeon Fog, and I'm assuming this is the battlemap editor, so Dungeon Fog will not stay as a separate entity.
No. No.
No.
I think if you're referring to the question whether or not the battlemap editor will be integrated into DEIOS, that has always been the plan. The problem is, as it has been before, the problem is that DEIOS development takes a lot longer than we anticipated. So we're trying to clean up the things that are definitely not working outside of a DEIOS environment. So city maps and world maps need to be there. So you have your editors, you have a city map editor and you have a world map editor. And once those two things are done, we are then turning our attention to how do we bring battle maps into the desktop application as well. And for the time being, until we have solved that and did a release, there will be a kind of a split state where if you want to do battle maps, you have to do them online in the online editor. And if you want to do city maps or world maps, you do it in the desktop application.
Incubus is also talking about reverb on me. I'm not entirely sure. No one else seemed to have mentioned it, so we'll watch that. Navad108 says, yes, they were thinking about the DEIOS maps. So DEIOS maps, eventually there will be a community sharing option for DEIOS maps.
Yes, definitely.
Absolutely. So, Till, the rollout of the asset manager wasn't exactly as planned.
No.
There was a little bit of a glitch.
Oh, you're so kind. No, it was utter disaster. It was
well, I mean, not utter disaster. No one lost anything.
Yeah, that's true. But it was in the history of failed releases, it was the one that cost probably most of my life energy, and I've probably lost a couple of years there. Yeah, Isabel is going to be very sad. I'm not going to make it to 80 probably, thanks to this release. Um, no, the problem was that we did thorough testing. Like we knew that the infrastructural change of the asset manager and the infrastructural change of moving the battlemap editor to the cloud is affecting like a core element of everything. So starting in November, probably even earlier, um, we were creating a test environment that is a reflection of the live environment, and we make sure that whatever we do works out before we actually kind of press the release button. And then we pressed the release button, and it turned out it didn't work as we planned. And there's always like whenever you release something, there's always, that's why we internally we have something that we call all hands on deck. This it's like 2 days after a patch, everyone has to be around. Because we simply don't know if we've missed something in testing, and we might need to do a quick hotfix or a rollback or whatever. So we were anticipating some things. We like, as you do, you're like, well, maybe we will see. We did the release, we did the testing, and on the evening of the 14th, everyone was tapping the shoulders and was like, yeah, great release, what a joy, that was fun, everyone, good work, good work. Let's have a meeting on Friday morning, see if we need to fix something, and then have a great weekend. And when I got up in the morning, I already saw the messages from Lars. He's our community and QA guy, and he was monitoring. He's US based, so which means when I go to bed, he gets up. And I saw the messages, and they were like, server's not responding, something's wrong. So we got up, we got into a crisis meeting, and we quickly looked at what was happening, and we've realized that for some reason, the CPUs on our servers are like, they're maxed out. We're going to see in a follow-up screen, or maybe I can switch to that right now because
I was thinking, yeah, I've changed the order around, so this is.
So this is basically what we were looking at the moment that the patch went live, or the asset manager went live.
It looks like an earthquake.
Yeah, it felt like an earthquake.
And then it lasts for 6 days. It's like, what?
Yeah. So the problem was that we, like, the first thing that we said is, well, okay, let's roll back. Let's just take a step back and do another week of investigation before we try it again. However, since people had already started to migrate assets over the night, rolling back would have been a terrible shit show, because we at that point we simply didn't know what was going on, and there was the inherent fear of maybe we're making it worse if we now try to do something, because you have data states of people migrating assets, and then you have the old databases. And if you start to roll back, are we in sync with all our data, or do we then just jumble up everything and probably have to wipe databases? So we said, no. Let's spend Friday on analysis. Let's do an announcement. Let's talk about the fact that the loading page, because that was the result. The result was when people tried to open the map, it just loaded and went into a timeout. And we said, okay, let's investigate that. And by the end of Friday evening, we already knew, we got a bit further. We already knew that the way that the battlemap editor is sending requests to the new asset manager and the new database structure is through kind of a query, a request that is just stressing the server. So we knew where to look. We understood that the query is a problem, and that we need to look at the way that we are querying for all the assets. But comparing our queries from the test environment to the live environment showed that there is absolutely no difference in there. And that's a point where you you start sweating, because you're like, okay, what do we do? What do we do? How do we figure that out? So the only thing that we could come up back on Friday was, we said, okay, let's increase the timeout for the service. So even if people are requesting a map and it takes more than, I think the timeout was back then was at 2 minutes. So if it takes more than 2 minutes, let's not block that request, let it pass through. So at least people can open their maps, even if they have to wait for, well, I had to wait for 4.6 minutes until a map got loaded. To buy us some time so we can actually do some investigation. And you can see that this is basically this area here. So spike. Then we increase the timeout. This is also where people were not requesting a lot. So we felt like, okay, we might have bought us some time. And then Sunday started. And a lot of people are prepping the games and prepping maps and using Sunday for map making. And it went like max out, not working. Which then sparked something. Out of the whole thing came two good things. A, we learned something. And B, because we were so desperate of how can we fix that, is that we took a task that was long on our to-do list and was always pushed back, like, we're doing it with version 6, we're doing it with version 6. We took that task and put Andy on it and said, okay, Andy, the way that the battlemap editor requests the asset manifest is still a legacy relic from back then, when we only had 800 assets. So the manifest is actually requesting all available assets to the user in the loading screen. And for someone who is content subscriber and probably Patreon subscriber and probably has a bunch of uploads, that manifest can get up to 22 megabytes compressed and 100 megabyte uncompressed. So if the time that it takes to load that manifest and then decompress it is what is causing the whole issue. So Andy said, okay, you know what? I think I can do it in a couple of days. Let me sit down and rework it into asynchronous loading, so that only the assets that are necessary are requested at the time when the loading screen shows up and at the time when the asset pickers are opened. And while Andy was working on that, we started to ask for external help. We contacted the server guys, we contacted everyone, and we said, look, we're having this problem. What could it be? Now, fun fact, for everyone who's ever dealing with AWS servers, there is a setting, I don't know where exactly, but I'm pointing you in that direction now. There is a setting that treats the way that the databases are handled very old school, because by default, it still assumes that the storage device that the database is stored on is a hard disk, and the spinning one, the metal one. So if you want to request something from the database, it has to do 4 iterations over the data to make sure that any compression loss might be covered by doing not one check on the database, but actually doing 4 iterations on it. Now, there is a setting where you can say, no, don't do 4 iterations, do just 1, because hello, 21st century, we are actually on an SSD, and we're not on a hard disk anymore. And that instantly reduced the loading time. Who would have guessed? 4 times. And Moritz, who helped us figure this out and also then looked at the way that our databases, like compared the database on test with the live database. He then also pointed out that there was one indexing missing that we couldn't see anymore because we were so panicked at that moment that we just overlooked it. Which means that on the 20th, we then finally found the issues, fixed them, and reverted us to our regular loading states. So right now you should not experience more than a minute loading when you open a map, depending on how big the manifest is that you're requesting. And Andy has already put his asynchronous loading into QA for us, so we're testing that already. There is a good chance that we are doing it next week, but there might be a chance that we're holding back a bit because a lot of us will be taking a short leave after this nightmare. So it's either next week or the week after Easter vacations or Easter holidays, when we're going to put that out. And that is, I've seen it already. It's on test for us internally. That kind of, after that, you're lucky if you can see the loading screen at all, because it's super fast. It's only requesting the assets that are currently on the map when the map is opened, and then it starts to request assets as you browse them, which makes the whole experience so much faster. And to be fair, I promised I'm going to say that on stream. We should have done that a lot earlier. Yes, Andy, you were right. I'm sorry. It has been like, it's one of those tasks that kind of get pushed back because there's always something more important until something breaks terribly. And then you're like, yeah, we should have done that a year ago. But now we've done it. So
Now it's done. And it's a complete overhaul, basically. I mean, it's asynchronous. You've switched the CDN, so it really is a fantastic overhaul.
Yeah,
really,
but I'm going to go away from that screen now because it is.
It's scary.
Absolutely it is.
Absolutely.
A testament to what can go wrong.
Go wrong.
But to be fair, honestly, I have to say that it is not like there was no fault blaming and passing around internally. We all knew that things can go wrong. No one really. Sure, someone could have seen it. But the chances were it was such a weird glitch that I'm not blaming anyone for that fuck up. All I can do is I can apologize to you people because you've been waiting on loading screens for a week or a couple of days, and I'm sorry for that. I hope you can forgive us. The treat I'm giving to you is loading will be a lot faster in a week.
And there is a new asset pack with which to be super fast in loading, which is great.
Yes. There is a beautiful, I think this is an amazing asset pack. It is, let me switch to it so you can all
The title's not as dramatic as one might hope, perhaps.
Yeah, that's true.
It's a beautiful collection.
Yeah. But we could have named it better. I agree.
No, I don't think so. I'm trying to think, what on earth could you call it? But it is appropriate. It really is. It is.
Thank you, because I've been racking my brain about it, and I was like, okay, do we call it the Deep Sea or Pirate Adventures? But it is about fishermen, and if we're calling it fishing, that's not true because it's not so much about fishing, but it's whatever coastal fish or dock scene you want to draw. It's working now, and I think Tony had a lot of fun doing it. I had a lot of fun turning it into what it is now because it is textures, it is paths. So the docks, the how do you call it, the jetties? Those are paths that you can just draw with the paths tool.
Oh, lovely.
You have the beautiful perspective fishing nets, and the rouses, rouses. You know the things where you can catch lobsters in?
Lobster trap.
Lobster trap. Okay, I might have named it really weird then. Apologies, because I was using Google Translate for it, and I think the proper translation for it was ruses. It's
Perhaps.
Reusen. It's Reusen in German.
Reusen, yes.
Yeah.
No, I've always ever known them as lobster trap. Anybody in chat can shout at me.
Luckily, you can tag it now to make it easy to
So you
find.
can call it whatever you like. Wicker cage thingy. Chat has come up with some suggestions. Joarama says dockside. Incubus says dockside props. Another suggestion is dock and tackle. Although, well, yeah, I mean, I think they're all appropriate. I think dockside is probably a good one.
You
if
know
don't
what?
want to use
I
fishing.
think we're going to use the power of this gremium, this knowledge base here, and the next asset pack will have a temporary name until we as those who participate in this get together here decide on the final name for it.
There you go. I like that. I
yeah.
like that. All right.
All the suggestions were better than fishermen because it's very, I think it's very German. It's like, what is it? Fisherman. There you go. You have it.
I see. Incubus is saying a crab box. No, I've always ever known it as a lobster trap, or fish traps. That's what I've known them as. Anyway, it's a beautiful asset pack. Is that bell part of the asset pack? Beautiful golden bell. That's lovely.
Is.
The octopi is great in the little rowboats.
The
crabs.
rowboats, by the way, are like to build this map. I kind of stole a little bit from
Pirates.
other asset packs because the rowboats are in the pirate pack. I think the seaweed
waves.
is also in one of the probably the wilderness packs.
The bulrushes. Yeah,
the bulrushes, right? But I think those are and there's some cliffs in there that are in the terrain pack. But we don't see them on screen here right now. The map is available. I made it public, so you can grab the map and look at how I did it. There you can also see which packs are included in there if you want to recreate that map. But generally speaking, most of it is included in this pack, which also, by the way, sparked the idea of us releasing our own new tech collections where we say, okay, wait, let's organize assets in different packs and tag them. So we're not actually releasing new assets. We're tagging an asset and we say, okay, if you're looking for pirates only, here's a tag list of all the assets that are pirate related. And you could use them as well. So as you can see, the asset manager is going to become a very crucial tool for us to exchange and share concepts of how you could structure and organize assets.
Good question from Navad108 here. I was a backer for Project DEIOS and I have an account for the world editor and have never used the battlemap editor. Is it safe for me to create an account there or should I wait until account integration?
No, if you want to check it out because basically we're migrating those two accounts in our like we have this this roadmap for this year where we have account unification on our list of things that we need to do, where we then take the DEIOS account and the Dungeon Fog account and we merge them into one global universal account, which means just go ahead and create your account. If you've backed DEIOS on Kickstarter, that you might have also backed it with premium time. So have a check on that. It should be displayed on your DEIOS account, or again reach out to us at support@dungeonfog.com if you need any assistance on activating your premium time in the doobly-doo here in the battlemap editor.
There you go. All right. Speaking of, we've got another name suggestion from Joe Rama. I think Joe Rama gets one suggestion because the first one I thought was really good. Now we've got Doc's Gone Wild. So Doc's Gone Wild, well, anyway, speaking of battlemap editors and Project DEIOS, let's talk about Project DEIOS. Let's move on.
Yes, let's move on
into DEIOS.
Into
What's
Project
happening
DEIOS.
in DEIOS.
Okay.
Yes.
All good news. I'm super happy about the progress that we're making in Project DEIOS. So last week we have released the latest patch to DEIOS. It was a very important one for us moving towards the beta state of the city map editor, because we have ticked off a lot of those like boxes that were also sitting on our to-do list for a couple of months now, where we knew we need to address them eventually. Now we did. The first one is you're now getting a save prompt when you close the application or when you go back to your dashboard, which means that if something's not working in the application the way that you liked it, you can just close it and say, no, don't save it. And it doesn't automatically always save the latest state of your map. If you haven't noticed yet, in the previous patch, we've introduced a save a copy option, which means that if you're working on a map and you feel like, okay, this is really good, now I'm going into the experimentation start, you can just save a copy. And if you don't like what you're doing, again, you have a backup saved as a copy. And now you also have the prompt that is saying, hey, do you want to save that, or do you want to discard whatever you did? So you're not losing maps through that process. We did a bunch of UI enhancements. I'm very happy with the way that those are working right now. We've moved all those 100 sliders that we had. We've moved them into better controls. They are precursors. Currently, they only know two states, on and custom. But they are precursors of presets that we're going to do with them. We haven't had the time yet to sit together and create a variety of presets for all those settings. But basically, the goal is, A, it's much cleaner now and it's much more intuitive to use those things. And B, you can switch from off by default to custom, do your adjustments. And eventually we're going to fill that list with preset 1, preset 2, preset 3 for those settings, so that you can see what you can already do with preset adjustments. And there is a concept, not an actionable yet, but there is a concept of saying, hey, wouldn't it be cool if you could save your own presets somewhere down the line? But before we get lost in doing the fiddly things for those, there are more pressing things that we want to address. So it's not off the table. It's just pushed back to when we can actually address those fancy things.
Till, wouldn't you just hide me from the layer at the moment? Because I'm completely blocking the upcoming, and I can't hide anywhere. I'm stuck.
Yeah, you know what? Come and join me over here.
I probably missed it by 10 minutes. Oh dear, we need to change this. And apparently I also sound like I'm in an auditorium. So, or a cave. I think a lot of people are saying cave. Maybe that's where they think I belong. Till, this is really exciting stuff. No. There's another error now. Now I'm blocking integration with an uncropped edge. But that's,
Oh, yeah. You're enjoying that. You're enjoying that, don't you?
Anyway, when we talk about the upcoming stuff, what are we talking about there?
Okay. Let me quickly finish the last release, because we have fixed the issue with the landmass auto shoreline generation. This is amazing. This is so much fun to play around with, because when we introduced the path tool, we figured out that it also works to draw a path alongside the shoreline. But the problem was that it didn't really work with adding or subtracting to a landmass. Now that's fixed. So you can add and subtract from your shoreline. And it always renders this beautiful hand-drawn path around it, which I think makes maps look really amazing. And is also something that we're going to do in the world map editor. And then there's other stuff like elevation hotkeys, and the post effects have moved. So if you're looking for post effects, they're now where they should be, in the export option, because most likely you're working on the map and then you want to export it with some effects applied to it, and not you're trying to work on a map while all the effects are applied to it. So that's done. There were a couple of fixes. So now we can talk about the upcoming stuff, which is bringing an end to our city map development time. Once those things are done, we will not end working on the city map editor, because if you've noticed, things that we did in the city map editor have already started to bleed into the world map making. So this is going to be a two-sided street road there. Things that we're doing on the world maps will also bleed into city map making, and some things are just so similar that we said, okay, let's end this city map development, like layers. That's one of the things that we've shifted from city maps into world maps. We said, okay, we're starting world map work over, and we're going to address a couple of things that were also planned for city map making back then. Terrain elevation is a nice tool, but there is one crucial improvement missing at the moment, and that is the concept of terracing. You might have seen that when you've been playing around with it. If you're creating one hill and then another hill, they're not actually merging into a kind of a terrace, but they're actually kind of over-circling each other. That is being addressed at the moment. So that is one of the final things that we want to do there. And then we are working on the city asset final artwork, which we're going to look at in a minute. The improved color schemes, and of course stability patches that we're doing. We said we want to end in Q1 with city map making, and then starting from Q2 we shift back to world map making. Now there is a bit of a kind of a blending there. It is going to take us some time in April to get those things done, but we have also prepped our kickoffs for the world map analysis, where we say, okay, what are we going to address first on world maps? How are we going to do this? This is going to start. So the rough concepts are done, but kind of the kickoff meetings and the workshops on how are we going to do this are starting on the 8th of April. And for Ilya and Andre, it basically means they are slowly they're working the tasks off their boards, and if one task is done, new tasks are bleeding in from world map. So there's kind of a transition phase in April where we're going from one place to the other.
Lovely. Okay. Do we want to talk more about what we're seeing up there? I mean, it's looking quite far ahead.
No, I think that's far ahead. I mean, basically, we all know that the big thing that we want to do is the biomes, and because that is one of the things that Ilya pointed out. Biomes are very similar to what we're planning with the district brush. So this might be one of the things where we're doing biome brush and then a quick work over into a district brush, and then have both like fed into both applications, or both areas of the application. The rest of it, we're going to address them as we get there. Roadmaps also available online, so if you want to throw a closer look at them, just go to your DEIOS account, and you can see them there. The last thing I brought for today, we've been talking about this last month, is and I'm going to do slide switch now, guys, so that you know, is what's coming up. And I wanted to talk about the final artwork. In last month, in February's Mapping It Out, I have been hinting at the fact that we're working with an external art director on the way that we treat colorization and color schemes, and that we think we could improve that. So they have been working on concepts that are now almost approved. They're just tiny bits and pieces that we need to adjust until we're happy. and then and they've also started producing the assets. So they're reworking the assets. I'm going to talk a little bit about that. In the left screen, you can see the current color scheme that is in DEIOS at the moment. And it is, I would say it's quite a straightforward fantasy-esque color scheme. Probably a bit too vibrant, but we wanted to know whether or not this is the right direction. So we asked them what would they do if they could rework the color scheme completely. And they came up with those. I'm not sure if the stream is going to show that, but they came up with two color schemes there that are very close to each other. The one is a bit more bluish, that's the bigger one at the bottom. And the one is a bit more like a blend between saturated colorful and this desaturated bluish theme. And we liked them a lot. Like, we felt like this is much closer to what we would expect in a book or in a publication, like in an adventure or a campaign, when it comes to coloring your fantasy maps. And so we were quite happy with it. Now we're working on the details of the color scheme. But all in all, I would say that already was quite the right direction. And as you can see, some things are changing. Like, for example, the way that roads are colored. In our current version, the roads are dark. In this version, roads will become light, which again is kind of a good representation of what is typically expected on the market. And the way that the assets are being worked over is also quite stunning. I really love what they did there.
Yeah, what is the big change? I mean, already I'm looking at it and I can see that there's definitely a sharpness.
Yes.
That's the first thing. What else are we seeing?
Yes. So if there are no questions in regards to the color scheming for now, let's look at some of the assets in detail. Because here we can see so guy, now I'm going to move you back to your place. There you go. So in Guy's Corner, we can see the old assets, which were produced as kind of our working templates for the assets. And in the other corner, you can see the reworked ones. And actually, I'm going to move myself away a little bit, because one of the big challenges that we anticipated and that we gave to them and said, look, you have to tailor to the following requirement. It's beautiful if those assets are scaled up to that size, but that's not how they are represented in a city map. They have to be identifiable and unique when scaled down to a very tiny size. And that is actually quite challenging to do. That's a lot of reduction, color balancing, highlighting, shadowing, so that you can still make out details even if the asset is super small. And when you compare them to what we did last year, you can see the tremendous improvement that they brought to the assets. So
it's subtle. It's subtle at first, but the more you look at it, the one thing that I will say immediately is that the updated assets, it's exactly the same as what you guys had, but instead of it being straight lines, it's now hand-drawn lines.
Yes.
And I think that look, I mean, if you just look at the detailing on the steps,
exactly,
you go, but they're not that different. But there is a subtlety. The one looks a little bit more rigid, the other one looks more hand-drawn, and that fits with some of the other detailing. So very interesting.
Yeah, I think the really interesting part is how much, sorry, you're not going to see my mouse unless I move it here. Those highlights and those shadows, compared to the very flat blend highlights that we had here, they're great on zoom, but they actually start to work really good on the small scales because they still kind of keep the details. You can see that there is a dome. You can see that those are those onion towers there. So I'm very happy with what they have already handed over. And what does that mean for you guys? That means we're not taking away anything. We're currently investigating if we can replace assets on existing maps, where we say, okay, wait, it's the same asset but reworked, so we're just loading the other asset. We're doing a replacement there. If that is working, brilliant, even better. If that's not going to work, what we're going to do is we're going to leave the existing maps untouched. We're going to hide the old assets in the asset picker, and we're just going to show the new assets, so that whatever you do moving forward will then be available. That's something that we're just investigating at the moment. I can't say what is going to work and what is not going to work there. There is a ton of stuff that we're currently producing with them. Like we are redoing all the existing assets at the moment. We're also doing a load of new brushes, because we have, wait, isn't there a screen missing? There you go. I kind of mixed up my screens. We have worked on a full color palette that is going to be reflected in textures. So brush textures, and so on and so forth, that it works in sync with the buildings out there. And we're going to work on more additional color palettes as we move from texture pack to asset pack to asset pack, like the modern pack that was already requested a couple of times. That will get its own color palettes, which again means that brushes and light and all those things are going to be adjusted to fit the broad color scheme there. So for you, it means that hopefully by the end of April, we will be done with that and you will have all those new assets available. It also means that we are then moving into our cycle of releasing new asset packs on a monthly basis for cities while we're working. It's kind of, it's the reverse scenario of last year where we said we're working on cities. So while we're working on cities, we're handing you world map assets. So this year it's going to be we're working on world maps, so we're handing you city assets in the meantime.
Couple of questions for you, Till.
Yes.
And this is referring back to the temple that you were showing us.
Yes, I'm going to.
What if the light is coming from a different direction? Because now the shadow on the temple is a lot.
Unfortunately, the shadow will be still affected.
Of course.
But it is not a 3D object. It's still a hand-painted thing. So the lighting will not adjust on that. That's just simply at this stage, it's not possible for us. There might be ideas how we could do that, but that is a bit too far in the future for me.
All you could do is just rotate the actual building.
Well, of course, you can mirror, like you have the options to vertical or horizontally mirror the building, so you can do that manually. But we have no, like, there's no, well,
as you move the light source, all the buildings rotate around, so suddenly your entrance is your exit and your exit is your entrance. But at least the shadows will match.
Well, no, I was thinking that we actually, since we know where the lights, like we could detect whether or not the light source is in the right half or the left half of the map, and that means that we could at least vertically mirror the asset so that it always, at least the lights, the light side is always aimed towards the light source. Yeah.
Anyway,
maybe that actually that wouldn't be that. I mean, easy for me to say that's not complicated, and then I'm going like Ilya and Andrew are gonna go shut up.
What are you saying? All right, that's lovely. What else? you got me thinking. Oh yes, so with this new look that is coming through, does that mean we're going to see the world map editor, the world map assets going through the same color shift?
So the big benefit of the world map assets at the moment is that they have been done by the amazing Keora. So there is, to some extent, probably a step where we look and see if we need to do some slight color adjustments to fit the color palette. But Keora gave us really good looking color palettes for the world map assets. So I don't think that we need to do that. However, for the city map assets, because Keora is not exclusively working for us, but is also working for on his own tasks and projects. We weren't able to get all the assets from him, so we had to find a way to produce our own assets there, and which means that eventually there's definitely there's a point where we will reach assets that are not available in the Keora packs. Then we will do our color adjustments to them. But again, I think there are 3,500 assets on the world maps. So it'll take some time until we reach that point.
Yeah, absolutely. Fantastic. Okay, I don't see any other questions. And after everything that we have been through in tonight's show, I think there's a lot for folks to play with. There's a lot of fun things happening. When are we likely to see the next DEIOS update with the new colors and that sort of thing? Did you mention that?
No, because I don't know yet. Like,
okay.
Ilya and Andre have both also now taking a break. They're both on vacation. They're relaxing a bit. I wanted them to be fully powered up when we go into world map making. So they will be back on the 8th. I will be back on the 8th. We will be all then sitting together and doing the kickoff. And that means then we will know when the patch hits. It's going to be April, but I can't say if it's like first, second, or third week of April. It's going to be somewhere around the next mapping it out, hopefully. Yes.
Well, there we go. In which case, I would suggest that you switch the last slide and that we say thank you to everybody who was watching this evening and for your wonderful questions. And bearing in mind, if your questions weren't answered, head on over to discord.gg/dungeonfog, where you can ask your questions there. The community will help you, or the moderators themselves will give you guidance, or support@dungeonfog.com for any other questions that you might have. You'll get your responses there. Is there anything else that needs to be said, Till?
Well, as always, happy map making, guys.
I was going to try and jump in just as you said happy. You just didn't pause. You just did it as one long thing. Anyway, we'll see you next year.
Yeah, and for those of you
next time in April.
For those of you who know what I'm going to say, for democracy. Bye, guys.
Ciao. Oh, dear.